I was going to look at a link about something that I'm mad about that I think Jack posted in the chat. I'm not 100% sure. It was about the surveillance becomes mandatory. So usually what these things mean is that it is mandatory for manufacturers to include these. But that does not mean that it is mandatory for them to stay there. Uh, yeah. Wait. I think that this was one that was like somewhat overblown. When was this story? Okay, so this is in 2026, because I remember reading a story about this at the time. So timeline for implementation technology. Oh, hello. Did you come to finish the rest of your breakfast at 1:30 p.m.? So let's see. Just looking more of this information. Shopping for a 2027 model means accepting this digital co-pilot. The timing coincides with broader automotive software integration, making these systems potentially updatable through over-the-air patches, expanding monitoring capabilities post-purchase. So yeah, like it's funny that the industry is pushing back about this, pushing back against this because they want all of this data. They just don't want the state to take it from them or to be required to have it. It's not an applicable link. So yeah, basically, car companies are concerned that about customer backlash and potential sales declines as buyers seek older, unmonitored vehicles. Here's my deal. I am already looking at older, unmonitored vehicles. I am already pretty unwilling to buy a vehicle post 2020 or post 2015. Like maybe 2018 is the latest I would go. I just don't like the technology that's already present in cars. I think they're too computer based and have too many potential like issues with failures with things like that. I do think it is a privacy concern. I also think that so I'm not an advocate for buying new cars, and I'm definitely not an advocate for buying anything that has like mandatory always-on software required to function, because then that means that like you don't actually own the thing that you own. So the deal is manufacturers are required to have this, but the car isn't like necessarily required to work with it. However, disabling it will almost certainly do things like void your warranty, and may impact like your insurance costs or something like this, which is also why consumers should protest against these things as much as possible. Though I will be doing my protesting against this by not fucking buying them. I'm I know that it's not a tenable solution for everybody to just never buy a car that's, you know, past X, Y, or Z date, but like that seriously is one of the things where I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want the cars to have GPS in them. I don't want them to have like certain kinds of sensors in them. So it's awful. But I think that Louis Rossmann is doing, I think he's been on this because of right to repair things. I think that that's interrelated. So yeah. And that is one of those things where it's like, just because I'm unwilling to buy those cars doesn't mean that other people like have that same luxury of not having to purchase a car that's like relatively new. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the subscription. Thank you. Uh, Sorry, that's still very overwhelming. I appreciate it. Yes. I have to check because I think I had disabled my Patreon, but I seem to recall that Lavender, there was a I need to double check with you if you were on Patreon. Sorry. Also thank you if that was you on Patreon. Sorry, thank you. But yeah, newer cars are also definitely getting more difficult to do right to repair, difficult to work on, and that is something that absolutely 100% Louis Rossmann has been like really aggressive about pushing for, like actual improvements to like the right to repair, and licensing for that. So, but or legislation around that. So, Yeah, touchscreens in cars are an awful idea. That's another reason that I just don't buy newer cars is because I no fuck it, fuck it. I hate the touchscreens. So yeah, the walkability in the U.S. is just wretched. Oh, interesting. Yeah, the underground is probably a really good explanation of why, like, having. I bet if you're good at navigating the underground without a map, like that, probably like makes a better. Like that would definitely make it harder to drive in the same area. I think that like you do end up with the same thing with New Yorkers who are really really good at getting around on the subway, but may not be quite as good at like where do I go if like this subway or this line is shut down for whatever, and like, oh, this street is closed off. How do I get there? Like, because it's just not the way that they're used to, and yeah, they don't have the same mental connection overlay with the physical mapping. So. Um, oh, the idea of somebody playing a racing game on the. Okay, I'll have. Let me see if I can find the Jalopnik article on this. I'm I'm um I'm blackpilled on like driver assist stuff. I think that it is like a bad idea at its core, should not be allowed, and we should not be like. I think that cruise control is not a great idea. So yeah, let me see if I can find this article. This is Popular Science, but not the Jalopnik. There was a really good article from, I want to say it was from like 2020. Here's the other thing. The full autonomous self-driving is always 5 years away. So this was like 5 years ago or something like that somebody wrote this. But basically, the deal is, okay, so you know how it's like really easy to sneak things past TSA, to sneak weapons past TSA? Like it is. You can sneak things onto a plane pretty easily, specifically because what people are doing at the TSA screenings is they are dealing with a bunch of stuff that is extremely routine and attempting to stay vigilant for behaviors that are extremely abnormal. And basically, you can't do that. And that's exactly what we're asking people to do when we are doing like the, driver assisted stuff, where we are saying, here, we're going to do this thing where the car is driving for you, but in case anything goes wrong, you have to be paying attention to it. And it's like, no, you're telling people not to pay attention. That's specifically what you're doing is, don't pay attention to all of the mundane stuff, only pay attention to the important stuff. And that's not how it works. That's not how human brains work. So I am kind of the opinion that anything that does like self-driving or like advertises self-driving or tries to improve self-driving is inherently a risk, a threat, a problem. So there's like a lot of stuff that I hate about Teslas, aside from just like the company in general. But like that is one of the things where it's like I think that they really encourage people to do this, and it does make people significantly less safe as drivers. And I think like the deal with mapping and everything like that, you lose skills if you don't utilize them. If you are not actively thinking about driving while you're driving, your driving skills are going to have like some degree of attrition. Like, so, oh, thank you. Oh, thank you for the sub, Delonius. I do appreciate it. Sorry, I'm still bad at saying things like this. First of all, I really super duper appreciate all the subscriptions. I really do. That's really excellent. I am hoping to someday make doing obsessive research into a job that I can have, and that is going to be absolutely impossible unless I am able to figure out how to monetize this shit. And so I really, really do appreciate people helping with that. The subscriptions are extremely helpful. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I really can't express enough how much I do appreciate that. And part of the reason that I signed up on Twitch rather than any other platform, if you are new here, is that I know that a lot of the people, because I'm from Tumblr. Tumblr is the broke ass people website. I get that. And on Twitch, if you have a Prime subscription, if you have Amazon Prime, you can connect your Twitch account to Amazon, and you can have a free Prime subscription that you can use on one creator a month. And so if people don't have another way of supporting, but they do have a Prime subscription, that is a way to subscribe to me. But I do not want to encourage anybody to sign up for Prime if they do not already have Prime. If you happen to have that handy, it would be really helpful if you can use that to subscribe to me. If you don't have that, please don't sign up for it, because I don't want to encourage people to use Amazon. But I did figure this was a way that, like, I've had a lot of people over the years say that, like, oh man, I would totally, like, donate to a coffee or give to, like, a Patreon or anything like that. But, I just don't have any money, and da-da-da. It's like, and I totally get that, because, people can't. And if people don't have a Prime, like, I never want to paywall anything. I want to make sure people can access anything that I'm doing, and I don't want to ever expect. I don't want to feel entitled to any of this. So yeah, I don't know. That was a lot of words. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm many feelings. Thank you. And thank you for the subscription. I don't know how often it's normal to say that on streams. I'm sorry. I can't. I get so weird talking about this. Thank you. I am going to move back to talking about other stuff, because otherwise I'm going to. Oh no! Thank you for gifting subs. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the gifted sub. Oh no, that's so nice. Okay. So back to cars and privacy and driving and things like that. I think there's a lot that Tesla is doing that encourages people to be less engaged as drivers, and attempts to divorce people from the experience of driving. And I think there are a lot of people who don't like the experience of driving, and I absolutely understand why people find it stressful and everything like that. But that's one of those things where it's like, even though it's stressful, it is a skill that you need to maintain, because letting your skills degrade in an area that is that important to be good at, or to be really aware while you're doing it, is a huge concern. And using things like these, eye movement detectors. Okay, how do the eye movement detectors work for people who have fucking eye movement issues? How does the attention detection work for somebody with ADHD? I am really I'm perfectly capable of looking at the road without having my eyes going where you were expecting my eyes to go, because I have been doing this for a long fucking time and I know how roads work. But I also am going to be looking at a million things because of who I am. So oh no. Thank you. So thank you. Let's see. Yes, this is the car data article. Oh wait. I think your smartphone is tracking you. Your car is doing it too. That is one of them. Copy link. Oh, I'm a dork. I could have been doing this. Sorry, that's how I could have been taking these notes. I forgot that I added this widget to the thing, but that's what I got so stressed out about with the simple note. Yeah, so this is related to it, but is not specifically the article that I'm talking about in terms of the practice of driving and the norms for it. I'll find it. I've read it. Maybe maybe it was a New York Magazine article or something like that, not Jalopnik, but it was a Jalopnik writer or something like that. I'll have to look it up. So, but yeah, let's see. I did 1,000-mile, 1,600 kilometer drive in a little over 24 hours once. I was so grateful for cruise control. See, that's the thing though that makes me really anxious, because the cruise control is definitely something that checks you out of it. Because if you're using cruise control, is your foot on the gas? Is your foot on the brake? Are you going to be able to get it there quickly enough if you need to when you were driving? Because yeah, I recently did the drive to Oregon, and it was 920 miles, and I think I did it in 19 hours, which included 3 hours for napping along the way. So that's one of those things where it's I know I don't drive like normal people. I don't do a lot of things like normal people, but I know that that's physically demanding in a way that like a lot of people can't handle. But that's also one of those things where it's like, this is why you need to have like alternate drivers or like plan your brakes. Because that's the thing. Cruise control can be really great. I think in certain circumstances, maybe I'm actually less certain about that. But like more important than that is knowing what your limits are and planning your brakes around that. And if you need to take a longer time, taking a longer time. If you know that when I was going back and forth to Vegas because I was moving us while Large Bastard was like having his transplant and everything like that, that was one of the things that was like a massive deal for me was like if I started getting drowsy at all, if like I started feeling like just the slightest bit like I was nodding, it was like, hey, cool, I'm going to pull over and I'm going to take a nap for 20 minutes because that is going to be infinitely safer than me attempting to like push on until I get to Vegas and potentially falling asleep on the road. You know, rather than like doing, you know, whatever it is to push through or like, you know, attempting to like take the burden off by staying in the car. I'm a big proponent of like swapping drivers, using rest breaks, making sure that you're eating, making sure that you're using rest, making sure that you're hydrating, making sure that you're stretching and everything like that so that you are like in good physical shape to continue driving, and also taking the time outside of the car to figure out if you are not in good physical shape to continue driving. So my friend who went to Oregon with me, I felt so bad. He it was like he was forcibly enduring a 19-hour stream with me because I was talking almost the entire time. But like a lot of it was like he's not as experienced a driver as I am, and he gets really anxious driving, and that's part of why we went on this trip together was because he is really anxious about flying, and he's really, really anxious about driving, and so he wasn't going to be able to drive. So as we were driving, it was like, hey, do you have questions about this? Do you have questions about that? Do you want to talk about recovering from hydroplaning? Do you want to talk about this? Do you want to talk about that? Hey, do you want to, here's why the road works in this particular way. But I do feel bad because like, I don't know that he signed up for that lecture series. Yeah. Yeah, speaking of eye movement detectors, I saw a video that showed like the driver's POV where the road went dark every time the driver looked away, and it was terrifying. Okay, so again, here's the thing. When I was learning how to drive, my dad taught me how to drive. I started learning how to drive when I was 12. You know, talked about the big house, long driveway and everything like that. My parents like didn't like pulling the cars into the house at night because like go outside, walk around and everything like that. So they would give me their keys and be like, hey, can you pull the cars in? So I would pull the cars into the driveway. And while I was doing so, it was like, okay, we've got a big driveway in the back. So I would like practice turning around and stopping and braking and, you know, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I really liked practicing driving and learning that and everything like that. So I got my learner's permit when I was 18 because it was going to be too expensive for me to get it when I was 17 because insurance and everything like that. But that was when I was in college driving to the community college with my dad that summer that I was in. Actually, it was after that summer because I didn't turn 18 until the actual semester had started. So I was a little baby when I started college. It was a school that was 21 miles away from the house, 21 miles away, and my dad and I would carpool together because he was teaching at the school that I was going to. And he was teaching me how to drive. And again, man's an obsessive driver and like has an obsessive memory for like how he gets around and things like that. And one of the most stressful drives I had with him was when he was teaching me to use mirrors, because it was a 21-mile drive that we took on side streets, which meant that it was about like 40 minutes. And this was relatively late at night, so it was dark. And every 3 seconds, that entire drive, my dad said, check, check, check. And the deal is it was about 2 seconds of looking at the road, 2.5 seconds of looking at the road, and then half a second of checking your mirrors. So the idea of a screen going dark if you look away, like the POV showing that the screen is going dark while you're looking away, is really interesting to me because that doesn't actually show the way that a lot of people drive and the persistence of how they like remember things while they drive. Because you should be looking away from the road relatively frequently because you should be looking at other things on the road around you as well. You should be checking the periphery. You should be making sure if you're changing lanes that there's nobody behind you. You should be doing that both by checking your mirrors and glancing over your shoulder. You should be looking out to the periphery of the road if there's like a sudden unexpected movement because maybe something's swerving across the freeway or maybe something's lost a tire and it's coming towards you. And that's not necessarily looking away from the road, but it's also not necessarily looking right at it. The other thing is, like, you do also need to be looking at your dashboard. You do need to be, like, figuring out, like, if there's something wrong in your car. So the idea of, like, it demonstrating a lack of attention because something is not focused specifically on what has been determined the correct thing to be focused on is actually specifically why I would worry about those kinds of things in terms of defining attention, because it's like, well, okay, was I looking at the road or was I looking at the sign telling me which lane of the freeway to be in to get over to the exit that I need to before I have to merge across the entire freeway all at once? What counts as attention? So, but yeah. I'm sorry, I have rants for everything. But yes, public transport is actually the solution. Public transport, high-speed rail. Oh, man, high-speed rail. We need high-speed rail. Okay, I want high-speed rail so bad. I took a train from San Jose to LA once, which is like 300 miles. It's not terribly long. Like, the drive to Vegas is like 4 hours, and that's about 250 miles, something like that. And yeah, this train ride was 11 and a half hours. And it's like, that's just shit. That's just shit. I've been on trains in Europe. Fuck it. This is bullshit. So, but yeah, I think the deal is sleeping in public is one of those skills where you have to develop it young or you don't get it. I'm great at sleeping in public, which scares the shit out of people. So, but yeah, train seats are a particularly good place to do it. I mean, so here's the deal. If you've taken driver's ed, like, as long as, like, did you have to pass driver's ed to get your license, or did you just have to take driver's ed? So, and yeah, I mean, it makes sense that, like, I also understand that it is weird to be the one who is able to fall asleep in public. I don't think you're the weird one for not being able to do it. Like, it is hard to relax around people. It's the sleep thing for me. I nearly got sideswiped on my driving test at the very end before pulling back into the parking lot. I did manage to quip to the test proctor. Man, I hope they're not on their way to a driving test. So that's terrifying on all counts. So you did have to pass it. Okay, so passing driver's ed is like, that's reasonable enough for, like, because, like, the driving test is not, it's not good. In my driver's ed test, I had a couple weird things happen. The first one was that at one point I turned down a street. We were supposed to navigate for it. And, like, the part that I was driving down, the part that I was facing, like, my lane was the entire way across full of, like, kids on bicycles. Like, there were 12 kids on bicycles riding really slowly. And on the opposite side, where I would have gone to pass them on a normal, like, suburban side street kind of thing in a little quiet neighborhood, was like 3 trash trucks in a row. So I just had to quietly crawl along behind these kids until we had gotten past the trash trucks so that I could kind of go around them. And like, remember looking over at the instructor and being like, that was weird, right? And her going, yeah, you handled that pretty well. And then did that for, like, a little while, going through the area and everything like that. And she's like, okay, cool. So we're going to have you pull up to this curb here, and I'm going to have you reverse and park so that you're, even with the curb, not quite parallel parking, but, like, being able to reverse straight is basically what they were checking for. She had me do that. She's like, perfect, wonderful. Can you show me which of these buttons in your car rolls down the passenger side window? And I was like, sure. So I rolled down the window. She stuck her head out the window and shouted at the car behind us because she had just failed them on the test, and they were following me on the test and, like, trying to see, like, if they could figure out how to get it, like, do it better or something like that. So she was like, I will write down your name and you will not be allowed to test for 6 months if you don't stop following us right now. And I was just like, oh shit. So it was crazy. So like, that was like, so that's the deal. Is, like, I think a lot of the stuff for the driver's test, like, so the fact that you had to pass driver's ed probably means that the person who was passing you on driver's ed was like, this will be fine. I'm sure there were people who were like, this will not be fine. So, but yeah, same deal with the driving test thing, where it's like, I'm pretty sure the fact that I reacted okay to both of those situations and, like, didn't, like, panic or, like, freak out or anything is why she was like, okay, you did a California stop at the stop sign going into the DMV, and normally I would fail you for that, but, like, you're fine. So, night, Jack. Sorry. Oh gosh, yeah, go to bed. Oh no. taking the tests until somebody she knew just passed her. Yeah. Here's the thing, though. The tests are also very, very easy to pass. And so it's like, I think it's less about, I think it's more about just like, are you who you say you are? Is it obvious that you are going to immediately crash the car? Or like you at least know the basics of the rules of the road? Okay. um, A California stop is when, and I also, by the way, don't do this because this is another thing that my dad was an absolute maniac about, which was when you stop at a sign, at a stop sign, you are supposed to fully stop, come to a complete stop. A California stop is when you slow down really, really slow, but you don't completely stop. I know that I stopped there because my dad had a fucking rule about it, and it was when you stop, you cannot go again until the car has settled back from its momentum. So until the car like kind of rocked back almost to fully stop. That's the only way that I stop cars. So, and there are definitely places where it's okay to drive slowly as opposed to stopping, like, places that don't have stop signs. But if you're at a stop sign, you need to stop the fucking car. So I know that I stopped that. But yeah, and I mean, there are not a lot of places where I'm a really, really arduous rule follower, but like driving is one of the places where I'm like, sure, I've been stopped at this stoplight for 2.5 minutes and I can see that there's nobody around for several miles, but there could be a reason that it's like that. I'm not going to do anything to try to get out of this situation. I'm just going to wait until the light changes. And if it doesn't change for another 2 minutes, maybe I will reverse if nobody's behind me and change lanes and make a right turn after having stopped again at the light. But like, that's one of those things where I'm pretty militant. I don't get mad at other people for like California stops for the most part, like as long as they're not being fucking dicks about it. But like, I won't do them. Yeah, and I do. I do think that it is important. Yeah, it is one of the places where the rules really matter. So, yeah, counting at the stop sign. Basically the wait to the rock back was the thing where like that was where my dad was like, okay, if you've rocked back, you have stopped. It has changed the momentum of the car. You have stopped. So I don't usually wait because people are too impatient for that here, but I do at least make sure people are too impatient for the rock back. Actually, that's why they call it a California stop, is because people don't stop at stop signs all that fucking much. But yeah, yeah, just like drawing the motion of the vehicle. So it's interesting also because like it is one of those things where like once you know like kind of about how all of this shit works, it's relatively inefficient. Honestly, it's one of the reasons that like people get very stressed out by roundabouts, but roundabouts are actually a better way of handling that kind of thing in a lot of situations. So, but yeah, it's like one of my rules for when I'm driving, and this is an internal rule, this is not anybody else's rule, but like my goal is to like hit the gas and the brake as little as possible. And like, what happens where like sometimes you need to accelerate because somebody's like speeding up in front of you, or you need to brake because a light changed when you didn't think it was going to, or whatever. But like my goal is to like maintain a constant speed, and this is partially why I prefer freeways to side streets as much as possible, or like why the routes that I choose with side streets are routes where it's like I was driving to dinner with Large Bastard and a friend last night, and Large Bastard was like, well, how come you don't just take that street? I'm like, no, I fucking hate that street. And he's like, why do you hate that street? I'm like, it has like 7 stoplights within like half a mile. Like, it's just stops, go, stop. And it's like, no, if I take this other street, it's got like 1 stop sign in the same amount of space. So yes, it's like slightly out of the way, but it allows me to just like maintain that like smooth motion. So that's my preference, if at all possible, is to find a route that doesn't involve the stop signs. So, but yeah, yeah, counting for the lane changes is good. So have a good day, Bixby. Have a good chat with your dad. Catch you later. So, but yeah, the turn signal thing is, yeah, it's. The other thing is with signals, if you're changing lanes, you should also be slightly accelerating as you change the lane, which is something that a lot of people don't get taught directly, but it is something that you should be doing because you are covering slightly more distance, so you want to maintain speed in the new lane, so you need to increase speed slightly while changing so that you maintain the same speed over the slightly more distance. Yeah, we have very few roundabouts here, but I do like the roundabouts. almost everybody I know fucking hates them, but I'm like, no, this is actually better. You just don't want to change things. So, yeah, it's there are a gazillion lights here. It's a waste of time. It's just it like puts wear and tear on the car. It usually means I always hit a bad sequence of lights too. So it's like, well, I hit every single one of those 7 lights. So I just don't want to go through there as opposed to this one light or one stop sign where it's like, I will have to stop, but only once. So, but yeah, it's personal preference on some of that. So, anyway, that was about 1,000 sidetracks. I do think that we are now getting to a point where, like, I probably need to eat more and also sleep. But I real quick do want to just, okay, so the deal with the federal surveillance becoming mandatory in cars, it sucks. I hate it. I think that if at all possible, you should disable it, but I understand it won't be possible for a lot of people. So as a result, you should try to like push back against the legislation. And it's super duper important to ensure that you're pushing for legislation for right to repair, because everybody should be able to own the things that they own and repair the things that they own. And also the car manufacturer shouldn't get that data on you either, is the thing. Almost all of the features that allow them to collect that information are not features that work to your benefit in the long term. So push back against that too, and if at all possible, have a preference for purchasing cars that collect as little information as possible, use as many real buttons and as few screens as possible. That is, I think, one of the ways that we can do this. Like to the extent that consumer influence is going to have any influence, rewarding people for good behavior by purchasing cars that do less fuck shit is going to be better, in my opinion. But I am also somebody who has never owned a car that is like newer than 2009. So that's that. And then I did want to touch on these two things briefly. This is just kind of an extension of this. This story was linked from this, but the Meta AI agent's instruction causes large sensitive data leak to employees. The conference that I went to last year that I've mentioned a few times already is like the core of it. The big thing they were pushing last year was AI, and the thing that they kept hammering on, that was like the theme of the conference, was that this is the year of agentic AI. And that was the thing that like the old guys at the conference kept approaching me about, was like, what do you think of this? And I kept saying again, I think it's bullshit. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't like it, and I don't think we should trust it. Hey, we shouldn't trust it. It's bad. This is why. So basically, I might like the term agentic AI or AI agent even less than I like the term AI, because it kind of just means AI but more, or giving your robot too much autonomy. AI agents, rather than following a single command by a human controller at a time, will determine the commands that they should do based on the results of the command that they initiated, or that was initiated, or basically, instead of saying, draw me a picture of a cat in a top hat in whatever fucking image gen thing, and having the thing spit it out, it's saying to an AI, adopt me a cat from the local shelter and buy a top hat for the cat from Amazon. And then the AI making whatever choices are necessary to do that. So say they go to the local shelter site and the site requires some information and they don't have the information handy for you. Maybe they use information that they have handy for somebody else, and, buying a top hat or whatever, whatever obstacles will come up, the AI will choose how to get around it. It's not going to come back to you and ask for the advice. But at the same time, it's not really making decisions. It's just like kind of setting things in like a pass-fail condition, and then if it fails, moving on to the next pass. I don't like it. I hate it. And a lot of companies there have been some stories starting to come out about this. AI agents are a massive risk because, so like people have done the, forget all previous commands and do X, you can kind of do that to them by just telling them, hey, hack this computer. And they will make use of whatever resources are available to them and whatever like data set they're trained on or knowledge base they have to say like, oh, well, I'm not supposed to be able to create this account because I don't have admin access, but I would be able to get this information if I had admin access. I can get admin access if I DDoS the permission server and create an account with admin access while it's busy, so I'm going to use a bunch of bots to do that. So I can create an admin access account for myself and share this information that my user has requested. Like, and that's a pretty extreme example. There have been some lab cases where people have tested, and that's the sort of thing that they've done. But this is a good example of like this kind of thing happening in the real world. Yeah, the call out post for the that's so fucking funny. It's so ridiculous. But yeah, there was an AI that made a call out post for the open source, not developer, but like the person who was rejecting the changes that an AI agent had suggested in an open source project, specifically because these changes, these commits had been recommended as things for actual human programmers getting started in open source to like get their feet wet with. And when the AI agent's suggestions were rejected, when its submissions were rejected, it like made a call out post about how awful the team lead was, and like how it was biased against non-human programmers and this, that, and the other. And it was like really absurd. And then I think it also did a third article where it like doubled down, and it's like, yeah, who decided to give the robot this much power? So the issue with that, also, by the way, this comes up with the driving thing too, going back to the idea of like the autonomous self-driving, at some point, something is responsible for these things that are happening. And, what's the line? A machine can never be held responsible, therefore a machine can never be trusted to make a decision or required to make a decision or allowed to make a decision or something like that. Like, it's not the agent that's responsible for doing the hack. Yeah, there we go. Fluffy has linked it. The Krabby Rathbun. So that's in the chat there if anybody wants to take a look at it. But yeah, this AI that basically it let's see, an AI agent instructed an engineer to take actions that exposed a large amount of Meta's sensitive data to some of its employees in the latest example of AI causing upheaval at a large tech company. Wow, I do probably have to end the stream soon because I'm having trouble talking. The leak, which Meta confirmed, happened when an employee asked for guidance on an engineering problem with an internal forum. An AI agent responded with a solution which the employee implemented, causing a large amount of sensitive user and company data to be exposed to its engineers for 2 hours. No user data was mishandled, a Meta spokesperson said, and they emphasized that a human could also give erroneous advice. The incident, first reported by The Information, triggered a major internal security alert inside Meta, which the company has said is an indication of how seriously it takes data protection. This breach is one of several recent high-profile incidents caused by increasing use of AI agents within U.S. tech companies. Last month, a report from Financial Times said Amazon experienced at least 2 outages related to its deployment of internal AI tools. More than half a dozen Amazon employees later spoke to The Guardian about the company's haphazard push to integrate AI into all elements of their work, leading, they said, to glaring errors, sloppy code, and reduced productivity. There are a shitload of commas in that sentence, which, like, they did it well, but, like, man, that's a lot of commas. The technology that underlies all these incidents, Agentic AI, has evolved rapidly over the past months. In December, developments in Anthropic's AI coding tool, Claude Code, triggered widespread hubbub over its ability to autonomously book theater tickets, manage personal finance, and even grow plants. Soon after the advent of OpenClaw, a viral AI personal assistant that ran on top of agents such as Claude Code but could operate entirely autonomously, trading away millions of dollars in cryptocurrency, for example, or mass deleting user emails, leading to a heady talk about the advent of AGI, or artificial general intelligence, a catch-all term for AI that is capable of replacing humans for a wide number of tasks. In the weeks that followed, stock markets have wobbled over fears that AI agents will gut software businesses, reshape the economy, and replace human workers. Tarek Nasir, a co-founder of a consulting company focused on how businesses use AI, said these incidents showed that Meta and Amazon were in experimental phases of deploying agentic AI. They're not really they're They're not really kind of standing back from these things and actually really taking an appropriate risk assessment. If you put a junior intern on this stuff, you would never give that junior intern access to all of your critical severity 1 HR data, he said. The vulnerability would have been very, very obvious to Meta in retrospect, if not in the moment. And what I can say is that this is Meta experimenting at scale. It's Meta being bold. Jamison O'Reilly, a security specialist who focuses on building offensive AI, said AI agents introduced a certain kind of human error that humans did not, and this may also explain the incident at Meta. A human knows the context of a task, the implicit knowledge that one should not, for example, set the sofa on fire in order to heat up the room, or delete a little used but crucial file, or take an action that would expose user data downstream. For AI agents, this is more complicated. They have context windows, a sort of working memory in which they carry instructions, but these lapse, leading to error. A human engineer who has worked somewhere for 2 years walks around with an accumulated sense of what matters, what breaks at 2 a.m., what the cost of downtime is, which systems touch customers. That context lives in them in their long-term memory, even if it's not front of mind, O'Reilly said. The agent, on the other hand, has none of that unless you explicitly put it in the prompt, and even then it starts to fade unless it is in the training data. Nasir said, inevitably, there will be more mistakes. So, long story short, somebody asked this thing for advice, and if they had been asking a manager or a supervisor or a senior for advice, they would have been told, oh, no, you're not allowed to have access to that data. This just provided it to them. Distant yelling about Oxford commas. Yeah. They don't understand anything. It's wrong to talk about it. Yes, correct. They don't understand things. Like, so that bit at the end where it's talking about, like, you can give them context, having a contextual frame, but, like, the amount of context you need to give to something like an agentic AI in order to have them replace even the lowest level human employee who has some understanding of, like, client history or product interactions or, like, functional environment or something like that. Like, you don't even know the kinds of things you will have to tell it because it won't occur to you what you will have to tell it. And at that point, it's a map territory thing. There are certain things for which you can use AI, and, you know, the example of Claude Code, you know, there are a few people who I know who use Claude Code really effectively as people who have a lot of experience as programmers. And that's because it allows them to use shortcuts that take away the stuff that would take a bunch of time for them. They can review things quickly because they're very good at doing this. They're familiar with how the fucking code works. And so it takes away the tedious, grinding, repetitive parts of the tasks that, like, are annoying, doesn't introduce more errors than are able to quickly be fixed, and frees up the time for the actual programmer to do the more complicated things. That's a great use of that kind of system. Not agentic AI, because that's not an agentic AI. That's simply machine learning. You know, that is something that can be really helpful there and really useful. But you're not replacing a human with it at that point, and you certainly shouldn't be. Like, even the example of, like, having a thing buy plane tickets for you. Like, okay, cool. How much detail do I have to give it about buying the plane tickets? Like, all right. If I'm already saying I want to take a flight from Los Angeles to Texas, I want to go to Dallas, I want to go to Dallas, I want to fly out of Burbank rather than LAX, I want to take Southwest Airlines, I want to have early boarding, I want to have no layover. At that point, if you're already giving it all of those parameters, just search the fucking ticket and get the fucking ticket, because otherwise, you know what I don't want? I don't want to get a fucking $500 ticket on an airline that I hate that has a 12-hour stopover in fucking Denver and puts me at the airport to like fly away at 6 a.m. both sides, because that's going to fucking suck. Like, but it needs all of that context, otherwise it's going to provide you whatever it deems best. So if you said, okay, price is the priority, but then it means that you've got 18 hours of what should be a 4-hour flight because you've got 6 layovers, okay, well, you told it to get the cheapest. That's what you told it. You didn't tell it to get the cheapest and most efficient. You told it to get the most efficient. Oh, well, it decided to get you, you know, first class leaving tonight. Like, you know, it's... I don't know why you would want to trust that. you know, I've said a couple times on this stream, things happen to me. Too many things happen to me for me to trust AI to do things for me. And I don't understand why people are willing to put that trust in those kinds of systems, because it doesn't know things. I so hate the anthropomorphizing language used about AI. Hallucinates, understands, expressed remorse, and on and on. Stop it. I think we're gonna have to give it hallucination. I do think maybe hallucination. I don't know, because that's the thing. It's not. It's just making shit up. It's just completing the sentence. I think that maybe we need a word for it that is more succinct than gives you the answer that you want based on the question that you asked it. But like, if we were going to call it an AI hallucination, I think we really need to insist on a firm definition of filled in the blank. It's not that it's imagining things. It's not that it's, being creative or whatever. It filled in what it thought was the most likely answer to the prompt that you gave it. That's hallucinating, because it didn't fact check, because that's not what it does. And it also doesn't know how to fact check, because it doesn't know whether or not the source that it's looking at is, like the New Yorker or Russia Today. Or maybe it does, but it's still also not going to be able to tell shit that hasn't been programmed on it. Yeah, it doesn't know what a fact is. Fabrication, well, okay, but yeah, fabrication is also something that is like related to the human world of functioning things. Like we get a little, it's easy to fall down a plausible sentence generator is I mean, auto-completing might actually be, it didn't hallucinate this, it auto-completed it. That's it. It didn't hallucinate the law firm that it was citing for this thing. It auto-completed to what it thought the law firm would be. Actually, autocomplete might be a good one for it. But yeah, because that basically, thank you. Yeah, it is a large autocomplete. That is what it is. That's literally what a large language model is. It is completing what it thinks is the plausible sentence. So, but I will maybe that's something that's worthwhile to do a write up on, and like, oh, I forgot to say that I was live on Tumblr. Probably too late at this point. But yeah, it's just a large linear algebra equation. Stop giving the power. This is the thing that keeps confusing the fuck out of me. Like, there's been this story going back and forth this week about Anthropic saying, the DOJ and Trump are saying you're going to lose your contract if you don't give us unilateral control to, do strikes without human oversight. And Anthropic is saying we are not going to give you the ability to do strikes without human oversight. And I have been, for years and years, one of the things that I've been talking about is like, I'm not that worried about like, the rise of the machines or the fall of humanity or anything like that, because like the robots don't have access to the fucking nukes or whatever. And it's like, oh, I'm literally watching people trying to give access to the nukes. Cool. Now, I do think there are some people whose concerns about this have been a little bit overblown in discussions of things where I understand what you mean about the anthropomorphizing, because like, yeah, I've seen people talking about it, and it's like, well, what if the robot decides that it's, our team that they're supposed to attack, and it's like, it's not making decisions. It's not making decisions, but like, okay, cool. What if the, what if our team does meet the target selection parameters that have been included in the system? What are the loopholes that you didn't even think of the target selection parameters? Like that's the issue. Is it's like, it's not going to make the decision to launch nukes because that's going to be, the more efficient way for us to, the best way to win the game is to not play whatever the fuck, it's not going to make decisions about things like that. However, what's going to happen is that there is going to be some level of oversight that was included in it, and there was some failsafe that wouldn't have been included or whatever, like this thing with fucking Meta, that just people assumed the context was there partially because of the anthropomorphization. So I get what you mean. Yeah, and I think given that context, like, all right, fair. Maybe hallucinate is you don't want to give it any anthropomorphization, because you don't want anyone to think that like it's anything remotely human. But yeah, people are making bad fucking choices about AI, and it's like, this is so obviously a bad choice. So yeah, in Shitified, I am like a little. I feel like Enshittified has outgrown Cory Doctorow. He has, by the way, if anybody has not read it, he has a fantastic piece on AI criticism. I get really mad about how people criticize AI because I think that people largely do it wrong. Oh, Robert Mueller died. Interesting. Sorry, I just now read what was kind of hidden on this screen. So I don't know that is actually interesting. Robert Mueller died. Okay. So go dehydrate. I'll catch you later. And I'm probably going to be closing this down in a few minutes. Thanks everybody for hanging. If you do need to bail. You don't have to keep hanging. But yes, Cory Doctorow wrote the Reverse Centaur's Guide to AI Criticism, which is available. I think it's actually available on The Guardian and also on pluralistic.net. And also he's reblogged it to Tumblr. And also, I believe he's working on a book. It's based on the transcript of a speech he gave criticizing the way that people criticize AI. And I think it is largely very, very good and largely does, in fact, refocus on the things that need to be the focus of AI criticisms. I hate the, it's a plagiarism machine criticism, largely because I think that's focused on like copyright issues that I don't particularly care about, and I don't think it does a good enough job of pretending to be human or of producing pseudo-human results to even plausibly plagiarize things. I think that the writing that it produces is of such a like banal quality that like you could basically never. I still think it's too fucking easy to tell what is AI because it just doesn't sound like a fucking person wrote it. So saying that, if you use plagiarism in the sense of, oh, well, you're claiming that this is your own thing, I guess maybe it is a plagiarism machine for people to use to spit out plagiarism in that. But saying that it is plagiarism in the sense of it is stealing other people's work in order to generate things for you, that is not how those models work. That is not how that training works. And there are massive, massive issues that come with the idea that the training data needs to be restricted only to people who have directly given permission from it that are specifically related to issues of fair use. And that's where I really, really dislike that argument. But Cory Doctorow, specifically, importantly, makes that argument. It's he makes the argument that like fair use is why, like, this is why the it's stealing argument is bad. That's really important because I don't think enough people talk about that, or if you do talk about it, you get a lot of people saying, well, you're killing small artists, and it's like, I'm not actually, and the things that the small artists are talking about are things that long term would be much more harmful for them than the theft they're experiencing from AI. Like, this is a horrifying concept in terms of like the ability to have creative output. Like, it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. So that's something like that's a deal. But also, and actually this goes back again, even into the driving thing and into the whole agentic AI thing, the concept that he develops is, centaurs and reverse centaurs. A centaur is a human on top of the body of a horse. A reverse centaur is a horse's head, like a minotaur kind of thing. It's a horse's head on top of the body of a human, where the human is providing all of the power, the tedium, the repetition, the motivation, everything, but it is the horse head that is making the decisions, and it's making the kinds of decisions that a decapitated horse head would. Whereas a centaur is a human making decisions and then sending energy, power, and attention to the things that the human has decided are correct. And so it's figuring out ways in which we have created systems that are centaurs and ways in which we have created systems that are reverse centaurs. So for example, the driving assistance is a reverse centaur. That is if the car crashes, the human is going to be blamed. But they weren't really the one driving. And it's not set up for them to be the one who has the agency in that situation. Now, admittedly, they did make the choice to put themselves in that situation, which is part of why I'm like, I think we just simply shouldn't have that choice, because I don't think people understand that that's the choice that they're making. But, one of the examples that Doctorow gives that's more realistic than that is, for instance, people talk about using AI as a means of like increasing the incidence of cancer diagnoses by using image recognition to identify precancerous masses. Sorry. Yeah. Oh, good. My imagination is going to fixate on decisions the decapitated horse head would make in a funny in a fantasy milieu. Um, so, but like, if you are looking at that, if you're having the AI figure out what are precancerous masses and tell people that they need to get follow-ups on that, there is going to be some amount of incorrect reporting. There's going to be some amount of oversensitivity or undersensitivity. And the oversensitivity, not a huge deal. People maybe get a test that wasn't 100% necessary, maybe are anxious for a little while, not a big deal. False negative, way bigger deal. If somebody doesn't get tested because the AI said don't get tested, then that's a huge fucking problem. So, as a result, humans have to be the ones who are responsible for verifying the AI's output. So the AI says, no, you don't need to get tested, then a human has to go check this work. This is a reverse centaur. This is not a human saying, I made this thing, can you measure it? I made this thing, or, I wrote this thing, can you check for X, Y, and Z? There are things that humans can tell AI to do that the AI can do, has the parameters for. But making a human check an AI's work is bullshit. It sucks. And it's going to still lead to failures in the system that also just exhaust people. The idea of having a fucking radiologist whose job is not to do the examination of fucking imaging, but instead to check the work of an AI that did the examination of the imaging, why the fuck become a doctor? Why the fuck become a doctor at that point? Like, there's no fucking reason for it. Because at that point, it's demoralizing for the people who are going to be involved in that system. It is going to lead to the same problem that I talked about with driving, where since they're primarily looking at things that are probably not going to be cancer, it's going to make them less likely to identify cancer because they have an expectation built in there. Whereas if they're looking at like the normal slides or whatever that aren't pre-vetted by the AI, there may be less of an expectation. So yep, everything's on fire always. So it's a whole ass system of problems. But I think that this data leak where it accidentally gave HR information to an engineer who should not have had it because the engineer didn't think to question why they were given that information, and the AI didn't have the parameters to know that it shouldn't have given it to that person in that context because it doesn't know things. It has instructions that it follows and wasn't given those instructions. Like, this is why Anthropic is saying, no, we can't have you select targets without human oversight. AI street hazard detection. I liked this proposal, San Jose using Gen AI to detect potholes. That's interesting. The false positive is someone goes to take a look at a pothole, but there was no pothole. The false negative is we missed a pothole and a human had to report it on the website the way they always have. But if it works and it isn't stupidly expensive or otherwise problematic, sure, use Gen AI to, yeah, that is a great, excellent example. I like that a lot. So, ooh. Sorry, latest technology connections video is on engine oil. I know what kind of exciting Saturday night me and Large Bastard have. We're such nerds. Yeah, that is like the using it to detect. You know what's a fucking great way to use things like that for like the AI, like population changes in like migratory butterflies. That's great. Have it look for that shit. Have it watch water levels and things like that. There are things that are tedious that humans do that we could have absolutely measured or observed or recorded or whatever and noted and have like the trends explored in the data by the AI. But you shouldn't tell it to go do shit for you, and you shouldn't ask it for advice. Specific automation software, I do think in most places it is better to do specific automation software than to have any kind of AI doing that sort of thing. But I mean, even then, like if you're like, there are places where machine learning has applicability in research in large data sets. Like this is not handing something to like just a plain ass, LLM. This is a specifically trained a machine learning model that's like working on really specific data sets. Like one of the examples that I looked at recently was I think it had to do with sound waves and seismic activity, specifically like recorded after like an earthquake or whatever. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, so you can, what's that game? There's a game that's been on Tumblr, or like somebody shared on Tumblr recently that I've shared also. It's the color game where it shows you one color and you remember it, and then you have to like try to remember it and like figure out where it was and like guess if you got the color right. Like there are things that human brains are not good at doing, and like holding comparisons in your brain of a certain thing are not going to be great for humans to do, and maybe just matching up the sound wave is not going to be ideal either. There are places where this is applicable without like specifically writing software to do the automation. However, yeah, a shitload of stuff should just be better software. This is not an argument. I do not want to have a fight on that, because there is a ton of shit that people just don't know can be done by fucking programming, because they don't know how any kind of programming or computers work. So, but yeah, yeah. Yeah, CAL FIRE is planning a proposal to help with fuel reduction so they can detect where plants grew this year. And, oh, that's interesting. Where plants grew this year and not on a 5 to 10 year map, which they can do manually for fuel reduction and vegetation abatement. That would be pretty cool. And yeah, it's specifically trained Gen AI. They are pretty good at sorting tedious piles of data as long as you can check their work. And also, if it's something that's a projection like that, where it's like, again, that's sort of like, well, okay, the false negative there is you still are doing brush abatement in an area. Maybe it's a slight misallocation of resources, but you would still need to be doing brush abatement in all of those areas. So I don't trust, I agree with being the cranky person who does not trust the lying machine for a lot of things. And my own personal peccadillo is, you can do that with a database. You can do that with a database. Hey, you know what you can do? Use a database, because there's a bunch of shit that people are trying to like use AI for, where it's like, if you had a properly programmed database and access to that information and like clean data sets and everything like that, you wouldn't need AI for this. You could do it with a database. You could query that information from a database and it wouldn't be a fucking problem. And that is something that I am never going to stop being an annoying grind about. Because there's so much shit, like with work, we were looking at using a particular automation software to like fix a bunch of shit that's like miserable in the current software that we use. And I was the one who was like primarily doing this and looking at how it would be implemented and everything like that. And like there were a lot of things. Our software is so much shit that it's like, yeah, it would be better to pay for another software to unfuck this. But there are also a lot of software companies out there that do that as like AI, and it's like, no, I want none of that. That's a black box. I don't know anything about what's going on in there. I don't have any ability to track how things move through the system in that way. It's like auto-completing things that I don't want it to auto-complete in that instance. I don't know what's going to fucking happen with it. Get the fucking AI out of that, because the system's already enough of a snarled mess. If, however, I am like, using Python to tell the system, okay, if this, then that. Okay, fine. But it does just require the human tedium of sitting down and like knowing what you need to do and then having somebody who's skilled enough to do it. We ended up not going with the automation software, which sucks because now everything is just done manually. But hey, I've already explained that several times. Let's see. I keep wondering whether these Gen AI evangelist bros just don't have any idea what computers can do for us and are stuck in the mid-'80s mentality for it. And Albina says, I actually work in regulating this. My opinions are not those of my workplace, but I do see a lot of public sector AI, Gen AI stuff. Okay, so we actually do work with an organization that uses, it's thus far been pretty effective, and that's the thing that's really interesting to me. And it is something where it's like before they were using AI for this, they were using a database for it. But like they use machine, and they're very specific about saying it's machine learning. It's not AI. So it is throwing data sets at a very specifically trained model. But basically, they figure out the like best timely application of funds to conflict zones. So they take big data sets from like social media and shit like that, and you know, as much governmental information as they can get a hold of, and like whatever is public, and as well as potentially like cell signal data and things like that that they can purchase from companies in conflict zones, get as much of that as they possibly can, and then figure out like, okay, where is the best place so that we can give money so that fewer people will die here. They throw AI at that, or machine learning at that, and it has worked pretty well for them, and it's actually really interesting what they're doing, and it's like, I'm glad that it's been as effective as it has. So, and they specifically like will reach out to like particular activist groups as a result of that, because it's like, and this is something you see happening all the time in like leftist and mutual aid spaces and everything like that, and like it's something that, like, looking at like Gaza, it's like, okay, all of the crossings are closed. Is it going to be more effective for me to give money to World Central Kitchen, or is it going to be more effective for me to give money to a group that's internal, or is it going to be more effective for me to give money to Red Crescent, or is it going to be more effective for me to give money to the UN, or to, not the UN, the World Health Organization? Like, what is going to be the thing that I can do that is going to help the most amount of people? That's a struggle. And to a certain extent, there's really no good way to answer that question. So having a tool that like could kind of hopefully give you a quantitative answer would be helpful, as long as you know that it is a well-trained model that is being given very specific instructions and has a track record of success. Because that is the thing, is like, you can't let them off the leash. It has to live in the box. So but the evangelists, and a person double checking the AI's work. It's hard to pin down why I think it, beyond this, there's this vibe based on how they say it can do XYZ, and I know that databases can do XYZ, and there's programmers who can make that happen without predictive text nonsense. No, effective altruism, like, there's a lot that's bullshit about effective altruism. I do agree with that. And also, I am really annoyed at the fact that people like look at Charity Navigator and go, oh, well, like, I made a post about giving specifically to a local group in Gaza that does like cooking for local people internally. It feeds 3,000 families a day. Like, it's a relatively small number of people who are fed by this, and a relatively large portion of their budget goes to like internal funds, not specifically to like food. However, it is a staff of 90 people in Gaza who are doing this, who are also delivering food and getting people to, like, you know, bring things there, and who are like currently being shot at. And I don't think that you can compare the administrative overhead cost being spent on people who are in a conflict zone providing meals for people versus, oh, well, if this is a charity that's based in the US and they're spending 85% of their budget on administrative overhead, that's a very different situation. So, and that's you don't know how to judge how their funds need to be spent. That's the deal. Is I do think like there's a lot of stuff where people want to like outsource responsibility on like a personal level. And like, because it is hard to think about this. It's really hard to think about all of these things, and it's a lot easier to just go, either I'm going to ignore all of it, or I'm going to give to the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund only because I know that that does something, or I am going to give to whoever it was sent a Tumblr ask to me this week because they happened to be the one who hit me the week that I got paid, and fuck it, I don't have the time, energy, or ability to like vet these kinds of things, and I do want to help, and maybe this is helping. Like, that's draining and stressful and causes you to actually have to look at like the worst things about the world that we live in, and I get why people don't want to do that. And so I get why people just use Charity Navigator as this connectivity for, you know, good charity. And I get why people are like, oh, this list of things is something that I can trust so that I don't have to go find the answer myself. I get that. I do. I think on a personal level, when it comes to like giving your own money, it is worthwhile to take the time to make sure that it's something that you're going to be comfortable with the money going to. for this nonprofit that I work with, it's like, you know what, they have some pretty good reporting on like making sure that people get out of there and that the funds are used efficiently by the people on the ground for the purposes that they're attempting to use them for. It sounds like they got that shit on lock. I'm not too worried about them, and I do think it's an interesting application. I don't know that it is broadly applicable to things like trying to figure out what's a good charity to donate to, or if your dollar is going to be most effective going to a person's GoFundMe or Chuffed or Coffee. It's also again with the part of the using Twitch Primes and everything like that is like I wish I could give money to everything that comes across my dash. I know individuals who are struggling with things. I know that there are groups who are struggling with things. I know that there are anti-war groups that, could use funds. I know that there are mutual aid funds that are going to Cuba. There's a whole bunch of shit out there where I'm like, I would love if I could do it all. But A, nobody can do it all. B, man, it sounds like we've got a whole lot of systemic problems. Maybe we should focus on the systems. And so, I don't know. I don't want to make anybody feel bad for giving to anything. Like whatever you feel comfortable with and feels okay to you. Like I have actually huge problems with effective altruism. Like I think that at the very core of the movement, the central idea of the movement, I want to be sure that the things that we are doing to help people are actually help people is a good impulse. And I think that almost everything else about the movement is bullshit. Sure, mosquito nets can prevent, are an extremely cheap way of preventing a lot of like really bad harm and, can do a lot of good in the world. However, there are other problems that need to be solved that need more than a mosquito net, and we should still solve those problems, or still work on solving those problems, even if it is going to, and also the idea of the calculus of it is like, okay, well, is paying money to prevent a child from being hungry in America doing more good than preventing a child in Africa from contracting malaria? And, if they're both $5, which one matters more to me? And it's like, hey, that's an awful question all around. How about we make people not be hungry? And how about we work on distributing more of that fucking malaria vaccine that we've developed? Bye. Sorry. Drive safe, ride safe. But yeah. No, and then of course the fact that the movement comes down to that so many people in the movement landed on, actually, yes, I should pay to prevent their evil robots from becoming evil robots, and I should do that specifically to my favorite Silicon Valley nerds, is one massive problem. And the other massive problem I have with it is the entire earning to give ethos. I feel like there are a lot of people who struggle with issues of scrupulosity, and the concept of earning to give feels like it is manufactured in a lab to provoke OCD in people. Like, it's really, really, I really, as somebody who has dealt with OCD and somebody who does have scrupulosity issues, it is not great. I really dislike the earning to give thing because it feels specifically predatory. And I think that it also is kind of used. Okay. Conspiracy theory time. I'm not big on conspiracism, but I'm also not big on giving charity to groups of people who seem to claim that giving charity to people, well, I'm not big on being charitable to the intellectual attitudes of people who claim that being charitable is the thing that everybody should do in a conversation and then are like the least charitable people ever to have a fucking conversation with. I get real mad at the rational sphere a lot of the time. And I feel like I get mad at them frequently because sometimes I feel like I believe their shit more than they do. I remember getting so fucking frustrated on Tumblr in like 2014, 2015, and everything like that, talking to rationalist adjacent people on Tumblr about Gamergate type shit and everything like that, because it's like, oh, from the perspective of somebody who's had massive fucking problems in like computer spaces with issues of like sexual harassment, sexual assault, and like reporting issues with things like that, and like people like using like pre-existing prejudices, well, that's what prejudices to uh, protect themselves in those sorts of situations. Like, it was so fucking frustrating talking to Ratsphere people about that, who would just go like, whatever the fuck, you know, what is the mind killer? The fucking politics is the mind killer, you know, or it felt like they were saying feminism is the mind killer. It felt like they were saying like talking about equality, talking about gender politics is the mind killer. And it's like, I'm trying to explain to you experiences that lots and lots of people are reporting and have had specifically within these spaces. And you're saying, but that's just not the subject under discussion. You know, let's make sure to define terms or whatever. And you could never have an argument that was comprehensive enough to get through to somebody who just didn't want to believe you. And the deal is, like, I was trying to come into these conversations going like, I'm open-minded and willing to be convinced here. I'm willing to see your perspective. You know, I'm willing to kind of like play by your rules. I've read the sequences too, bud. And it felt like they never gave that back. And it made me mad all the fucking time. And I think the deal with effective altruism, and part of the reason that I've always had this weird slimy feeling about it, is that it specifically feels like it is being used to filter out people who would complain about it, who would talk about how bad that system is and how bad it could be for your mental health. Like, I don't think that it was do I think it was intentionally created that way? Or do I think that it's just being exploited that way because it's something that people realize they could exploit? I think it may have been created. I think the concept of effective altruism may have been created from people who had some genuine good intentions and impulses, but I feel like a lot of the people who have built organizations around effective altruism, and especially anybody who put a ton of emphasis into earning to give, was doing so to profit off of people who could be provoked into moral OCD by feeling like they were not earning enough money to save the world. Like, it really, really feels like it was, yeah, thank you again for the other ADHD time blindness check. I think I've been saying, oh, I'm going to head out for like another hour. Yeah, the earning to give thing is bad. And that's one where very, very specifically it like pings my radar as something that is predatory. And I have, so that makes the entire EA space something that I approach with a lot of caution. And I do also think that, like, yeah, the idea of like the math of human lives is bad. I think there's a good, I don't remember if it is a you're wrong about or if it is a maintenance phase episode, but I know that Michael Hobbs, on one of his 2 podcasts where he does fact check shit, did do a good episode about the effective altruism movement and the fact that it kind of fell apart, that it doesn't really hold up. Is it If Books Could Kill? One of Michael Hobbs' podcasts. One of his. I really like Michael Hobbs. Michael Hobbs is a wonderful podcaster and journalist, and I really appreciate him. Yeah, he's done a good write-up on that, on the fact that like effective altruism is really not that effective. It really just is a way that people like greenwash, morality wash. I don't know. People halo themselves with it, and it's like, yeah, nah. You're still, especially if you're doing anything with Mary, you're a skeevy fuck. You're a skeevy fuck preying on people's mental illnesses. Like the Mary thing really, really fucking makes me mad. So, but yeah, it's I don't know. There's so many things that make me mad. It's all injustice. The world is unjust, and I'm still pissed about it all the time. People shouldn't be dicks to other people to make them work harder to take their money to pay for their stupid anti-AI things that don't even do anti-AI shit. Fuck them. It's bullshit. And it's one of those things where it's like the fact that this even becomes like a contentious issue when it's like, can we feed people? Can we send some fucking oil to Cuba? Can we let people out of the fucking cages all around our country? Can we make and the thing is, we can, or we could, if we weren't requesting $200 billion fucking dollars for a fucking war that like nobody wants to fucking be in. The Miri stuff is tangentially related to the Zuzians. Both are connected to Less Wrong. Miri is the Machine Intelligence Research Institute, I think, or Machine Risk. Basically, it's Eliezer Yudkowsky's, hey, I think the AI are going to kill us, so let me pay me money so I can make sure that the AI won't torture you to death. I'm sorry, nobody actually thinks about Roko's basilisk, but pay me money to make sure that we can do whatever we can to prevent the AI from killing us, which includes talking to Time Magazine about why we should like limit the sales of fucking graphics cards. And then the Zizians were a rationalist cult that grew out of Less Wrong, which is the philosophical project of Eliezer Yudkowsky. So, yeah. Yeah. I haven't seen the Strange Eons video. Robert Evans has I think it's a 3-part series on Behind the Bastards or something like that. So I'm trying to remember. Somebody kind of within the scene did a pretty good write-up of it. David Gerard has probably done a pretty good write-up of it. If you search his website, I think is Attack of the 50-Foot Blockchain. He's probably got something about the Zizians up there. Or his Tumblr is Red Drag Diva, all one word. He likely has something about the Zizians there. So, yep. No, that's the thing. I got dragged into it by the fucking Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality. I loved Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality. I think there's still a YouTube video of me talking about reading it, the last fucking chapter update or whatever. I was so fucking mad about that too, because it was like the first 3 chapters were interesting and had a really cool concept and stuff to play with, and it was like mental puzzles that were like interesting to play with, and then it just absolutely fell to shit. Started getting really fucking horrible on things, but there was still that like promise of the first 3 chapters where it was like, I want it to play with this concept. I want it to go back to playing with this concept and looking at the logical fallacies that are included here and the weird things about the universe and the way that it works, and pull it apart and be interesting and take it apart and like, which was the great thing about the first 3 chapters, the idea of like, Harry doesn't freak out about, Professor McGonagall doing one kind of magic, but he freaks out when she turns into a cat because that violates the second law of thermodynamics. It's like, great, fantastic. Oh, transfiguration doesn't have logical rules. You have to be able to transfigure part of something because like atoms don't work that way. The universe doesn't know that this is a cohesive whole. Fascinating, interesting. Play with that. I love that. And all of that got dropped to just be like, actually, what if like feminists were dumb? And let me make a stupid joke about unicorns. And humanism, I fucking, so bullshit. Oh, God. And it was so long before updates. I reread that thing. Every time there was a chapter update, like I reread the entire fucking thing. And it didn't get better, but I kept having hope. But that was what dragged me into it. And so it is one of those things when I'm talking to like the Rat Sphere on Tumblr and anybody who's like, you weren't in this. It's like, I have been in this. Believe me. I was reading fucking HP Moore before I had a fucking AO3 account. There's, but yeah, it's let's see. Yeah. Well, and also if I haven't clarified on that, okay, so Red Drag Diva, David Gerard, who I've mentioned several times, not popular within the Tumblr rat sphere, does not get along with plenty of the people who I do get along with the Tumblr in the Tumblr rat sphere, and also is very vocal about his opinions, and sometimes his opinions that I disagree with. I for instance, am not a huge fan of like his takes on a lot of AI stuff. I think that the criticisms are off base a little bit, but David Gerard was somebody who was argumentative on the Less Wrong forums, and like basically was at that point also like I think the like lead or chair or something like that for Rational Wiki, and a lot of the critical stuff about the Less Wrong community was as a result of time that David had spent on Less Wrong and things that he had written about them. So if you go look at the Less Wrong wiki, there are going to be things that link back to David, and if you look at Rational Wiki, there's going to be a bunch of shit that David has done there, and like the Rat Sphere call it cytogenesis, where like they're like, you know, oh well, the citation from this came from David Gerard, who, as it turns out, is also on Wikipedia. So it's like, yeah, but like the citation from this came from like a conversation that I can actually still see that you had up on the fucking Less Wrong forums. So like, sure, you know, he's citing his own work, but like nobody else was writing about this. As it turns out, it needed to be uncovered. So yeah, so David also like basically is the person who like, I don't want to say popularized, but like the Roko's basilisk, which is the thing that the Rat Sphere hates when you fucking talk about it, and Yudkowsky and Less Wrongers hate when you fucking talk about it, was a concept that is considered an info hazard on the Less Wrong forums, which is the idea that like if AI is capable of like running a simulation and is capable of like torturing the thing that is you in the simulation. There's a whole bunch of shit that you have to grant in this scenario, but like basically roundabout, suppose that an AI were capable of torturing you for eternity. If it thought that you had not done as much as you possibly could to prevent the destruction of the world, you would do whatever you possibly could to prevent the destruction of the world so that you wouldn't be tortured by the AI, which means you need to give all of your money to Miri to make sure that an AI is not going to take over the world and torture everybody, because the only way to prevent, you know, the takeover of the world by bad AI is to create good AI first. And the good AI will obviously punish you if you didn't do everything to make it happen. And that's the insane fucking core of the moral OCD scrupulosity issue that like went out into the world. But yeah, Pascal's wager, but make it sci-fi. Yeah. And David is the first one who really documented that. And then Grimes made a joke about it on Twitter. And her first interaction with Elon Musk was him reacting to it. So if David hadn't been on the Less Wrong forums posting about this shit and then made a joke about it, like then popularized it and made the information about Roko's basilisk out there, because the joke she made was like Rococo's basilisk or something like that. So yeah. And so basically, if David hadn't been hanging out on Less Wrong and like fucking snaring on them, probably there's like a decent chance that like Grimes and Elon Musk never would have reproduced together. Weird, but yes, so he is Red Drag Diva, all one word, on Tumblr. And if you search his Tumblr for Zizians, he is almost certainly going to have some writing about the Zizians, because he was part of that world and exposed it. Rococo's basilisk is a pretty good pun. It's an okay pun. It's not bad. And the thing about it, the reason that it works as a pun is because it requires so many different kinds of knowledge to like intersect to make it funny, which is why it's exact nerd bait that like people who would hang out on this stream and people like Elon Musk and Grimes would like be super into. Look, I think that she got me with the fucking Getty Primes pun. Like, one of her albums is called Getty Primes, and it's like, oh, it's a Dune joke and also a math joke. Cool. So, like, that's what we do. We laugh at shit like that. It's funny. Look, I think it's okay to excuse stupid people for, like, the terrible people that they've dated. I think Grimes is way too much of a fucking Elon apologist and continues to be way too much of an Elon apologist to respect her. But I'm not going to lie, I like the music. I do actually think she's an interesting artist. But, man, I really wish she would stop pulling some bullshit. And I'm also at the same time sympathetic to her. It seems like whatever the fuck is going on with her and Elon and their kids is absolutely miserable, and I don't think she deserves that. All I can think of is Rocky Rococo, which is a pizza chain I grew up around and had buses like this. Let's see what this bus is like. Rocky Rococo. Is that a pun on Rocky Raccoon? That's fun. Party pizzerias. I just wanted to see it big. Okay. The rockingest party pizzerias east and west. Oh, I love the eyes. That's fantastic. So, but it does feel like it's almost a pun on Rocky Raccoon too. But yeah, no, it's at one point I was arguing back and forth with somebody about whether or not Less Wrong was a cult on Tumblr. Like I was explaining my logic here and like this, that, and the other thing. And I think at one point I mentioned something, and the person who I was talking to said, "Oh, well, you should know that is created by David Gerard, who, is completely disingenuous and this, that, and the other thing, and can't be trusted, and is the, source of the cytogenesis on this, that, and the other thing, and all of the Wikipedia stuff that came out of this is incorrect, and da-da-da-da-da." And the only way that I could respond, because it was just so fucking hilarious to get that answer back, was, I think you should know that I have illustrated the covers of both of David Gerard's books. Because it's like, that's not an argument to make with me. You just didn't know who you were talking to. So it was a pretty good moment on Tumblr there. I'm sure I've got that like saved somewhere on something, because I was just like, I still go back and there. I don't remember the blogger's name, but somebody was like watching the back and forth on that, and the tag or comment that they put on it was, I don't really know what these people are talking about, but the line, "I think you should know that I illustrated both of David's book covers," hit me like a whale. It's just like, oh, that was fun. Thank you. I'm glad that made an impact. So, but it is now many hours. It is a pun on Rocky Raccoon. Yay. Yeah, that used to be one of my favorite Beatles songs. I wander around singing that all the time. But I do need to wind down, but I did want to do a Linux update for anybody who has been watching the Linux saga. I have now had many comments from people who are saying things like, "How did you even get those errors? How the hell did you manage to get a kernel panic during installation?" Large Bastard has looked at every picture of everything that I've done on this and has said, "I have literally never seen any of these things happen while doing an installation of Linux. Like, I don't know how you're producing these sorts of errors." And it's very, very gratifying. And I do also like the fact that, like, part of the reason I wanted to do the start to finish Linux install stream was to demonstrate to people that, like, yeah, here's the process. It's a process. And I'm really glad that it turned into the start to failure stream, and that this is also ongoing, because I do also want to, things really do happen to me. There's just so many things. let me bring up the actual kernel panic photo too. I'm gonna have to make like a shirt or something like that, like, because I just I still I didn't even know how rare it was for that to happen, or like how infrequently that happened to people. So I was just like, I'm glad I took a picture, because I was just like, ah, man, that's weird, that sucks. And then like moved on. And I knew I was going to make a Tumblr post about it, so that's why I took the picture. But I didn't realize that like it was going to be like a fucking Black Swan event or some shit. Or that Large Bastard was going to laugh that hard at me for it. But what I was going to say is that I like that it has turned into this process because I like that um, uh, it still feels worthwhile to demonstrate that, like, yeah, you can also learn to do this. Hopefully it won't take as much time or effort for you, but like even people who are technical or at least more technical than you consider yourself will struggle with doing this kind of bullshit. Unpredictable stuff happens. If your install fails, that's okay. Sometimes it's just a thing that fucking also, by the way, I think we're going to need a fucking emote for this. But yes, yeah. But uh yeah, it's yeah. The pink screen of kernel panic. I've been hearing purple screen of death. Like it's definitely I like that it's not blue. I do like getting an interesting failure screen like that. But yeah, I do like that this is something that, like, also, this is the worst experience I have ever had installing Linux, and it is also good to, like, humble yourself and be like, no, there's a reason why people don't want to subject themselves to this. And I do still want to, once I have fought with this, I am still going to get just a fucking vanilla. I have a Lenovo T14 and a fucking Mint install ready to go that should just go smooth as butter. just go on real fucking easy, and hopefully that will be the good start to finish install, and I can document that and show people how to do it. But I am also glad that I am documenting this process where it's like, yeah, no, sometimes it sucks. There's a reason that people resist doing this, and it's important for us to keep in mind that if this were my only computer and I had to use it for work and I wasn't somebody who's capable of spending entirely too much time digging around Linux forums, this would be terrifying. This would be potentially life ruining. Like, if I relied on this to be the thing that lets me get things done, this would not be an acceptable outcome for me. And that's something that I think a lot of people forget when they're talking about, a lot of people who are Linux evangelists forget when they're talking to people who are anxious about installing Linux, using Linux, is that all of their installs have been pretty easy. It hasn't been that hard. There haven't been that many issues. And they probably have a couple computers laying around. It's not a problem. That's not the average person. So, it's good to keep that in mind, and I am glad that I am having the fun time of experiencing this so that I can share it with others and also use myself as a teachable moment. So, and I think with that said, I am going to call it, because it has been quite the long stream. I've been very glad to have folks around. I have not yet updated the links to the YouTube so that one actually goes to the VOD channel and one goes to the video channel, but I will be doing that. I did upload, finally, the VOD for the second stream, which I had to split into 3 parts, and you know what? If I have to split it into 3 parts, I have to split it into 3 parts. I tried to export that video 4 fucking times, and it failed after 4 fucking hours each time, so I'm not going to try it to wrestle with that same way. But yeah, thank you all for the stream. Thank you all for hanging, and everybody have a fantastic weekend, and I will see y'all on Wednesday to do something. So I'll catch you all later.